Hi, Kevin Seaman. I'm going to discuss a few different ways to wrap your hands. There's so many ways to wrap your hands. And I put one in my previous video on hand wrapping. I put the one that I like, my favorite. And I had a few comments. People said they didn't like that one. You know what? It's whatever feels comfortable for you. That's the most important thing. But there are some criteria that you need to adhere to. Number one is you want your hand to be stabilized. Okay? Because when you're punching, you need support for your wrist and for your knuckles and the bones in your hand. This is very important. This is the whole purpose of the hand wrap. Okay, so it needs to be stabilized. As long as your hand wrap style does that, that's all you're looking for. So whatever's comfortable for you. I've been wrapping my hands since the 70s, and there's so many ways to do that. I've done it with gauze. I've wrapped people's hands in the UFC with gauze, in pro MMA. I've wrapped them so many, like hundreds of times in amateur fighting. And, you know, as long as it works, that's the most important thing. Remember that MMA, mixed martial arts, hand wrap is different than the Muay Thai style of hand wrap. So the first one I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to take this, put this on my thumb, and remember that when you're doing your hand wrap, you always want to maintain your hand in a starfish. Okay, this is super important. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll come here, I'll go around, and I'll come around using my thumb as kind of a base. I'll come like this, and then I will pull it, and I'll do the same thing. I'll replicate the same exact thing again. So I give it a little snug, keeping this so the hand wrap stays in place. I'll kind of pinch it, and then I put my hand like this, and I do it one more time. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll come around my wrist, and then I'll come up to my hand like this, and I'll kind of make a pad for my hand. And this gives you a little bit more padding. Back in the day when I used to box, we used to use a sponge. We'd go to the grocery store and get like a regular square sponge. We'd cut it into 3 pieces and we'd put it right on our knuckle and then wrap it in the pad right in there. And as long as you weren't fighting, that was legal. Like you could do it in your workout, in your training, but you didn't want to do anything, put anything in your knuckle when you're fighting, because they will check your hand wrap, and most of the time you can just put the gauze in there as a padding, so you don't need any extra. But see, once I've gone around my palm like that, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go through my fingers one more time. And this makes my hand really solid. Okay, and then once I do that, I'm going to come around here one more time, and then I'm going to come back onto the back of the hand to kind of seal the hand wrap. And then of course the Velcro should always be on your wrist. Okay, and this gives me a really nice solid hand wrap. You can see this little, I've got some padding there for my knuckle as well. This is one style. Okay, now the next style I'm going to show you is I start out the same way. The thumb, and I go to the inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around my hand like this, and I'm going to build up the padding. Now you can go back and forth also. This is another way, another method, and I'll show you this farther into the video when I'm discussing other methods. So I'm here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to go through my fingers like this. And this pulls the knuckle back, kind of stabilizes my knuckles in my hand. And so it should look like that at this point, see? I've gone around my hand about 3 times, and then I've gone through the knuckles, going up through the middle and coming to the back of the hand. So I'm like this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the wrist, and then I'm going to come back onto the knuckles. So now I'm using the padding twice. This is one of my more favorite styles of hand wrap. I showed this in my other video, and the reason why is because I can build a nice mound. Especially if you have a really heavy right hand, you may want to do this for your right hand. And then what I'll do is I'll come back, I'll go around my wrist. And if you have a particular problem, like say your wrist is a little bit skinny, like I have skinny wrists, and I'll put a little extra on my wrist, and that keeps the pronation from occurring in my wrist. And anytime you get to a position where your hand is like this, just flip the hand wrap so that the Velcro is in the correct position when you adhere it on your wrist. So here's I've got a nice solid cast here, and I can hit with that. Nice solid hand wrap right there. This thing feels like I could hit all day. So the third one I'm going to show you, and this kind of is like the style we used to do back in the boxing gym. I take the hand wrap and I just fold it over and I start to make a pad for my knuckle. And I like this pad to be kind of thick. And then I'll start that right on my knuckle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around and I'm going to hold that in position with the hand wrap. Okay? Then I go around my wrist and I come back to here. Now I've got a nice solid pad on my knuckle. Okay? And then once again, to keep my knuckle solid, I'm going to come with this through the fingers. A lot of times people will say to me, oh, why do you go up the middle? Why don't you go on the back of the hand and then up the palm? I think this is a preference for me. I want to pull the knuckle back, and this helps me pull the knuckle back a little bit more than the other method. And then what I'll do is once I do that, then I'll come around the knuckle again, like so. And then I usually come with the excess. Once again, I go around my wrist with the excess because I got those tiny little 10-year-old boy wrists that I was born with. And this helps me keep my wrist strong and stable when I'm punching the bag. One thing I want to tell you is that anytime you punch the bag, you should always have, at minimum, hand wraps on. If you're punching hard, you should have hand wraps and bag gloves. If you're not punching so hard, you're just warming up, bag gloves will do it. But I really, really encourage you to have your hands wrapped as well as using a good quality bag glove, because once you get a problem with tendonitis in your hand, it's almost impossible to get rid of. It takes forever. So that's what this hand wrap looks like. It's a nice solid hand wrap. Once again, I've got a big pad on there and I'm ready to do some damage. So personally, I would recommend that you rotate your hand wraps, get 3 or 4 pair, at least 2 or 3 pair, and keep a clean one in your bag at all times. This way you can launder them as needed, and they're cheap. So why not protect your hands? Remember, the 2 things that you want to always protect are your hands and your brain. So those 2 areas are very difficult to repair and impossible to replace. So we want to make sure we take care of both our hands, those are our tools, and our brain. Well, the other thing I want to recommend is when you're using your hand wrap, okay, it's going to be sweaty when you're done. And a lot of times people will take their hand wrap and they'll put it in a little bunch, you know, like this. And of course that's going to end up being a really nice tight little bundle with lots of protein and salt and water in there and skin cells. It's going to smell, and it's actually bacteria. It's going to breed bacteria. So the best thing to do with your hand wrap when you're done is just take it. If you can't hang it over something, then take it and put it around your fingers like this and just roll it up nice and light so it has some room and some air to breathe. And this is what I do when I'm done with my hand wraps, when I'm done training. And then I'll take it and I'll go around like this, and just gives it a little, makes a little package, and allows it to dry out. So there you go. You have a nice little package, and you can throw it in your bag, and then when you get home, you can wash them. You can wash your hand wraps either in the washing machine or in the sink. I will recommend, if you're washing them in the washing machine, you contain this guy, because what's going to happen is it's going to come apart and it's going to turn into a big giant knot. And when that's wet, it's going to be impossible to get out. So the best way to do this is I stick it in a sock, in the toe of a sock, and throw it in there, or you can put a little rubber band around it, something to keep that thing contained. And remember, you have to wash your hand wraps, because that bacteria that's in the hand wraps, you put that hand wrap on and you've used it 6, 8, 10 times, and that bacteria is going to be smashing right into the derma of your skin, and that's how you're going to get probability for MRSA or other types of staph in your knuckle. Remember, you're pounding that thing, and all of that bacteria is getting pounded into the skin cells. So you want to avoid that and keep your stuff clean and use good hygiene when you're training. This is Kevin Seaman. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video.